Velnara had been studying humans for 10 years. In all that time, she had never seen them angry. Not really angry. They smiled too much. They apologized for things that were not their fault. They backed down from arguments that they could have won. Her people, the Quiloth, valued emotional control above everything else. But humans were soft in a way that made Velnara almost pity them. The conference room aboard the Harmony's Promise was quiet, except for the low hum of the ship's engines. Taemin sat across from her, his hands folded neatly on the table. He was the human ambassador, and he had the kind of face that always looked calm. Too calm, Velnara thought, like he had never known real hardship. "We understand your concerns about the shipping routes," Taemin said. His voice was steady and polite. "We can adjust our freight schedules to accommodate your vessels." Velnara's colleague, a Quiloth trade minister named Kelvin, made a dismissive gesture with his upper appendages. "Your ships are slow and poorly designed. It is surprising that humans have achieved any success in space travel at all." Velnara watched Taemin carefully. Any Quiloth would have responded with cold fury to such an insult. Even her people who prided themselves on control would have shown something. A stiffening of posture, a sharpness in the next words spoken. Taemin just smiled. "We're always looking to improve. Perhaps we could learn from your shipbuilding techniques." Weak, Velnara thought. She made a note in her personal log. Humans avoid confrontation even when confrontation is justified. They would rather accept insults than defend their accomplishments. Jiwoo, the human xenobiologist, sat beside Taemin. She was younger, with bright eyes that seemed genuinely curious about everything. She had spent the morning asking Velnara questions about Quiloth culture, about their homeworld, about their philosophy of emotional restraint. Jiwoo seemed to find everything fascinating. "Your people must be very peaceful," Jiwoo had said earlier. Velnara had explained that the Quiloth were not peaceful. They simply controlled their emotions so perfectly that violence became unnecessary. Anger was a weakness. Fear was a failure of mental discipline. Jiwoo had nodded thoughtfully. "That must take a lot of practice." "It does," Velnara had replied. "Does humanity not teach emotional control?" Jiwoo had laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, we try. We're just not very good at it yet. Yet." As if humans expected to eventually master something that took the Quiloth thousands of years to develop. Velnara had found the confidence amusing in its naivety. The negotiations continued for another hour. The Quiloth made demands. The humans agreed to most of them. Heejin, the human security chief, stood near the door. She was quiet, watching everything with dark eyes that gave away nothing. Of all the humans Velnara had met, Heejin seemed the most controlled. But even she lacked the absolute discipline of a Quiloth warrior. Velnara was about to suggest a break when every screen in the room suddenly flashed red. An alert signal. All conversation stopped. Taemin touched his communication device. "Yes?" A voice came through, tight with stress. "Sir, we're receiving a distress signal from Daehan's Hope. The colony has gone dark. Long-range sensors show unauthorized ships in orbit." The room went silent. Daehan's Hope was a human colony world. 40,000 people lived there. Families, children, farmers and teachers and engineers building a new life on a frontier planet. "Pirates?" Taemin asked. His voice had not changed. Still calm, still measured. "Yes, sir." Vrax cartel. "They're demanding to speak with Earth government." Velnara knew about the Vrax, everyone did. They were a loose confederation of criminals and warlords who had been raiding border worlds for decades. They were brutal and efficient. They took hostages, made demands, and killed without hesitation. Multiple species had tried to stop them. All had failed. Taemin stood up. "Thank you. Route the communication to this room." He looked at the Quiloth delegation. "I apologize, but we need to handle this situation. Perhaps we could reschedule our negotiations." Kelvin made an annoyed sound. "This is inconvenient. We have a schedule to maintain." Something flickered across Taemin's face. It happened so fast that Velnara almost missed it. A tightening around his eyes. A slight change in his breathing. Then it was gone, replaced by that same calm expression. "Of course," Taemin said. "We wouldn't want to inconvenience you." The screen on the wall activated. A Vrax appeared, his scales marked with the scars of countless battles. This was Kravik, one of the cartel's most feared warlords. "Humans," Kravik said. His translator made his voice sound like grinding metal. We have taken your colony. 40,000 of your soft little people are now our property. Here are our demands. He listed them. Territory concessions, technology transfers, guarantees of non-interference in Vrax operations. The demands were extreme, impossible to accept. You have 72 hours, Kravik said. For every hour you delay, we will execute 100 colonists. We will broadcast each execution so you can watch your people die. We know humans are weak. We know you will give us what we want. The transmission ended. Velnara waited for panic, for fear, for tears. These were the responses she had read about in her research on human psychology. Humans were emotional creatures. They formed strong attachments to their family groups. They should be devastated by this news. But the room was quiet. Taemin stood very still. Jiwoo was no longer smiling. Her hands rested flat on the table, and Velnara noticed they were not shaking. Hyjin had not moved from her position by the door, but something about her posture had changed. She looked less like a security officer and more like a weapon waiting to be used. Taemin, Velnara said carefully. I am sorry for your people. The Vrax are dangerous. Perhaps the council can help negotiate. Taemin turned to look at her. His eyes were empty of expression. Completely empty. It was like looking at a frozen lake and knowing something lived beneath the ice. Thank you for your concern, he said. His voice was soft, too soft. We'll handle this. Please excuse us. Velnara felt something she had not expected to feel around humans, a small cold touch of fear, because she suddenly realized that she did not understand these creatures at all. She had spent 10 years studying them, learning their customs, watching their behavior, and in one moment they had become complete strangers. As the Quiloth delegation left the conference room, Velnara looked back. The three humans stood together, speaking in low voices. They did not look sad. They did not look afraid. They looked like people who had just received very specific instructions and were preparing to follow them with absolute precision. Later, in her quarters, Velnara reviewed her notes on human psychology. Humans experience strong emotions. They cried easily. They formed deep bonds. They avoided violence when possible. Every study, every observation, every interaction had confirmed these facts. So why did she feel like she had just seen something else? Something older and colder and far more dangerous than anything she had been taught to expect? She made a new entry in her log. Humans under stress do not behave as predicted. Further observation required. She had no idea how right she was, or how much her understanding of humanity was about to change. Velnara requested permission to observe the human response to the crisis. She told her superiors it was for research purposes. She wanted to understand how humans handled emergency situations. The truth was more complicated. Something about the way those three humans had reacted bothered her. She needed to understand what she had seen in their eyes. The humans approved her request immediately, too immediately, like they wanted witnesses. 48 hours after the distress call, Velnara stood on the bridge of the human warship Indomitable. 12 ships had gathered, all painted in the neutral gray that humans used for their military vessels. She had seen human warships before. They were well made but unremarkable. Defensive weapons, efficient engines. Nothing that suggested any particular talent for warfare. Admiral Dong Hyun commanded the fleet. He was an older human with gray in his hair and deep lines around his eyes. Velnara had met him briefly before. He had seemed like a bureaucrat, the kind of military leader who spent more time with paperwork than with actual combat operations. Now he stood at the center of the bridge, watching the main screen. His officers moved around him with quiet efficiency. No one spoke unless necessary. The entire ship felt like a held breath. Admiral, one of the officers said, we're in range of Daehan's Hope. The Vrax have moved their main force into orbit. They're using the colony as a shield. Dong Hyun nodded once. Open a channel. The screen flickered. Kravik appeared, looking pleased with himself. Behind him, Velnara could see a human woman being held by two Vrax soldiers. She was bruised and bleeding. A civilian, probably a colonist. Ah, the human military arrives, Kravik said. Right on schedule. Have you brought us what we demanded? Let me speak with the hostages, Dong Hyun said. His voice was flat, empty of emotion. Kravik laughed. You are not in a position to make demands, human. But I will show you one of your people. This is Subin. She teaches children on your colony. I will let her speak to you before she dies. Subin looked at the camera. Her lips were split and swollen. One eye was almost shut from swelling, but she stood straight. "Don't give them anything," she said. Her voice shook but stayed clear. "Don't let them win." Kravik struck her across the face. She fell to her knees. "You see how weak humans are?" Kravik said to the camera. "You value your individuals too much. It makes you easy to control. Now I will ask again. Have you brought what we demanded?" Dong Hyun stared at the screen for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was very quiet, very calm. "You have 30 minutes to release every hostage and surrender yourselves. After that, we will take action." Kravik stopped smiling. "You threaten me with what? Your little fleet? We have 40,000 hostages. We have defense platforms. We have ships stationed throughout this system. You cannot attack us without killing your own people." 29 minutes, Dong Hyun said. "You are bluffing," Kravik said. But Velnara heard uncertainty in his voice now. "Humans are soft. You care too much about your civilians. You will give us what we want." 28 minutes, Dong Hyun said. Kravik's face twisted with anger. He grabbed Subin by her hair, dragged her up and pulled out a weapon. "You think I won't do it? You think I won't kill them all?" 27 minutes, Dong Hyun said. He had not looked away from the screen, had not blinked, had not shown any reaction at all. Kravik pressed the weapon against Subin's head. "Last chance, human. Agree to our terms or watch her die." Dong Hyun said nothing, just stared. Kravik pulled the trigger. Subin's body hit the floor. The sound echoed through the bridge of the Indomitable. Velnara felt her breathing stop. She waited for the humans to react, to scream, to cry, to show horror. No one moved. Not one person on that bridge made a sound. They stood at their stations, watching their screens, doing their jobs. The only thing that changed was the quality of the silence. It became heavier, darker, like the air before a storm. Dong Hyun's expression had not changed. 26 minutes, he said. Kravik stared at the screen. For the first time, Velnara saw fear in his eyes. You are insane. You are all insane." 25 minutes, Dong Hyun said. "I suggest you use them wisely." Kravik cut the transmission. Velnara found her voice. "Admiral, what are you going to do?" Dong Hyun turned to look at her. His eyes were cold, so cold that Velnara took a step back without meaning to. "We're going to remind the galaxy why our ancestors conquered a death world," he said quietly. "We're going to show them what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness." He turned to his officers. "All ships begin attack pattern Delta 7. Special Forces teams prepare for immediate deployment. Rules of engagement are simple. Any Vrax who has harmed a hostage dies. Any Vrax who surrenders without fighting will be taken prisoner. Anyone who continues to resist will be eliminated with extreme prejudice, sir," one of the officers said. "The hostages are scattered throughout the colony. The Vrax are using them as human shields. Our people know what to do," Dong Hyun said. "They've trained for this. They're ready." Velnara wanted to ask how they could possibly succeed. The Vrax had superior defensive positions. They had hostages mixed in with their forces. Any assault would result in massive civilian casualties, but she stayed quiet. Because something was happening on the bridge that she did not understand. The human officers were moving faster now. Their voices were still calm, still professional. But there was an edge to everything they did. A sharpness, a focus that seemed almost inhuman in its intensity. 20 minutes, Dong Hyun said to the empty screen where Kravik had been. 19 minutes 18, the countdown continued. No one spoke. The bridge was silent except for the Admiral's voice marking time. When the timer hit 0, Dong Hyun stopped talking. He looked at his communications officer and nodded once. "All ships," the officer said. "Execute." The human fleet moved. Velnara had studied military tactics. The Quiloth were not a warlike species, but they understood the theory of combat. What she saw on the tactical display should not have been possible. The human ships did not charge in like berserkers. They did not fire wildly hoping to hit something. They moved with perfect coordination, each vessel following a pattern that seemed almost like a dance. Vrax defense platforms opened fire. Human ships dodged, their movements so precise that they seemed to know where each shot would go before it was fired. "How are they doing that?" Velnara whispered. A human officer nearby glanced at her. "Practice," he said simply. "Lots and lots of practice." The Vrax platforms began exploding, one after another, with barely any time between each detonation. The human ships were targeting weak points that Velnara had not even known existed. "Boarding teams away," someone reported. All teams have reached their insertion points. On the secondary screens, Velnara could see feeds from the Special Forces soldiers. They were moving through the colony structures, advancing on the Vrax positions. They moved fast, so fast. Their weapons fired with perfect accuracy. Every shot hit. Every movement served a purpose. No wasted motion, no hesitation. This was not how humans were supposed to fight. Humans were emotional. They made mistakes under pressure. They let fear cloud their judgment. These soldiers looked like machines. Cold, efficient, unstoppable machines. Admiral, someone said. Kravik is requesting to negotiate. Dong-hyun smiled. It was not a nice smile. Tell him we'll negotiate after every hostage is safe and every Vrax is dead or in custody. Not before. The officer relayed the message. On the screen, Velnara could see the Special Forces teams reaching the main hostage locations. The fighting was brutal and brief. The Vrax tried to use the colonists as shields. The human soldiers did not care. They fired anyway with such precision that they hit their targets without touching the civilians. Velnara realized she was watching something that should not exist. Humans who could control their fear so completely that they became more efficient than any computer, who could channel their rage into perfect violence. 4 hours after the assault began, it was over. Every Vrax on Dehan's Hope was dead or captured. Every hostage was recovered, except for 153 who had been killed before the assault began, including Subin. Velnara requested access to the combat recordings. She told herself it was for her research. She needed to understand what she had witnessed. But the truth was simpler and more disturbing. She could not believe what she had seen with her own eyes. She needed to watch it again to confirm that it had really happened. The human military gave her full access. Everything, every camera feed, every communication channel, every tactical display. They did not try to hide anything. She started with the Special Forces insertion. Commander Wanshik led the primary assault team. Velnara had seen him earlier standing with the other soldiers. He had looked ordinary, average height, lean build, nothing that suggested exceptional capability. On the recording, he was something else entirely. His team dropped from their transport ship directly into the colony's main residential area. The Vrax had fortified the location, using hostages as shields and positioning weapons at every entrance. It should have been impossible to assault without massive civilian casualties. Wanshik and his team moved through the structure like they had built it themselves. They knew every corner, every doorway, every sight line. When a Vrax soldier appeared with a hostage held in front of him, Wanshik fired without hesitation. The shot passed within centimeters of the hostage's head and hit the Vrax in the eye. The hostage did not even get scratched. Velnara watched this happen again and again. Human soldiers making impossible shots, threading bullets through gaps that seemed too small to exist, moving with coordination that required perfect trust in each other. One recording showed a soldier named Yoon-ji. She entered a room with 5 Vrax and 3 hostages. In 8 seconds, all 5 Vrax were dead, and all 3 hostages were being moved to safety. Velnara replayed the sequence 5 times, trying to understand how one person could process information and act on it so quickly. But it was not just speed. It was the complete absence of hesitation. Yoon-ji had not paused to consider options or worry about consequences. She had seen the situation, understood it instantly, and acted with absolute confidence. The Quailoth prided themselves on emotional control. But this was something different. This was not the absence of emotion. This was emotion that had been transformed into a weapon. Velnara could see it in the way the humans moved. They were angry, furiously angry. But that anger made them more focused, not less. It sharpened their reflexes. It removed doubt. It turned them into something that could not be stopped. After reviewing the combat footage, Velnara went to find Wanshik. She had questions that needed answers. She found him in a cargo bay, sitting alone on a supply crate. He was staring at a small photograph. When Velnara got closer, she could see it was a picture of Subin. She was smiling in the photo, standing with a group of children. A teacher, Commander Wanshik, Velnara said quietly. "May I speak with you?" He looked up at her. His eyes were dry. He was not crying. But there was something in his expression that made Velnara's chest feel tight. "Sure," he said. His voice was empty. Velnara sat down near him. "Not too close. She was not sure why she felt the need to keep distance. I watched the recordings of your assault. Your team's performance was remarkable. One Shik nodded slightly. He was still looking at the photograph. I have studied human psychology extensively, Velnara continued. Everything I have learned suggests that humans should not be able to perform at that level under stress. Your emotional responses should interfere with cognitive function. Fear should slow your reaction times. Anger should cloud your judgment. Yeah, One Shik said. That's what we teach in basic psychology classes. But it is not what I saw today. One Shik finally looked at her. You want to know how we did it? Yes. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he set the photograph down carefully, treating it like something precious. The thing about humans is that we're really good at lying to ourselves. We tell ourselves we're civilized, that we're evolved past our violent instincts, that we're better than our ancestors who spent thousands of years killing each other. He paused. But we're not better. We're just better at pretending. And when something like this happens, when someone hurts our people, all that pretending stops. We remember what we really are, what we've always been, and what is that? Velnara asked. Survivors, One Shik said quietly. Our planet tried to kill us for millions of years. Every disease, every predator, every natural disaster. We survived because we learned to be more dangerous than everything else. We learned to turn fear into focus, to turn pain into power, to turn grief into rage and rage into a weapon we could use. He picked up the photograph again. Subin was a good person. She taught literature to kids. She wanted to build gardens on the colony. She never hurt anyone in her entire life. And those things killed her because they thought we were soft, because they thought mercy was the same as weakness. You feel guilty, Velnara observed, for not arriving in time to save her. Yeah, One Shik said. I do. But you also feel something else. One Shik looked at her with those empty eyes. I feel satisfied. Is that what you wanted to hear? That I'm glad we killed every single one of those things? That I wish we could kill them again? That's not supposed to be how civilized people think. But I'm thinking it anyway. Velnara was silent. The Quiloth did not experience satisfaction from violence. They considered such feelings to be a weakness, a failure of mental discipline. We're not like you, One Shik said. We're not naturally calm. We're naturally violent. Everything about us evolved for fighting. Our bodies, our brains, our emotions. And for the last few thousand years, we've been teaching ourselves to control all that, to channel it, to only let it out when absolutely necessary. You succeed at this control most of the time, Velnara said. Most of the time, One Shik agreed. But not today. Today we needed to remember. So we did. He stood up, carefully placing the photograph in a pocket over his heart. You know what the worst part is? In a few weeks, this will fade. We'll go back to being diplomatic, to smiling and negotiating and being patient. We'll go back to pretending we're civilized. And everyone will forget what happened here. I will not forget, Velnara said. One Shik smiled. It was a sad smile. Yeah, you won't. None of you will. That's the point. He started to walk away, then paused. You want to understand humans? Here's the secret. We're peaceful because we know exactly what we're capable of. We understand the cost of violence because we've paid it over and over for our entire history. When we choose peace, it's not because we can't fight. It's because we've fought too much and we're tired of it. But you will fight again if necessary, Velnara said. Every single time, One Shik said. Without hesitation. Without doubt. Without mercy. Because that's what happens when you hurt something we love. We stop being civilized and remember we're survivors. And survivors do whatever it takes. He left. Velnara sat in the cargo bay for a long time, thinking about what she had learned. The Quiloth had always assumed that emotional control was the highest form of evolution. That species which could not control their feelings were primitive, less developed. They had looked at humanity's obvious emotionality and concluded that humans were young, naive, still learning basic discipline. But what if they had been wrong? What if humans were not failing to control their emotions? What if they were controlling them perfectly? Just in a way the Quiloth had never imagined. The Quiloth suppressed emotion to achieve control. Humans transformed emotion into a tool they could use. Both approaches led to the same result: precise, effective action. But the human method carried something extra, an edge, an intensity that made them more dangerous than any species that simply eliminated feeling. Velnara made a new entry in her log. But this time, she marked it with the highest security classification. Some things were too important to share casually. Humans are not soft. They are sharp blades wrapped in silk. They are predators who have learned to hunt with precision instead of frenzy, and the galaxy has made a terrible mistake in assuming that their kindness means they have forgotten how to kill. The news spread across the galaxy in hours. The Vrax cartel, a threat that had plagued multiple systems for decades, had been destroyed. Not defeated, not negotiated with, destroyed. Human fleets hunted down every Vrax stronghold, every pirate base, every hidden station. They moved with terrifying efficiency, coordinating across multiple systems simultaneously. Within 6 days, the Vrax cartel simply ceased to exist. The galaxy did not know how to process this information. An emergency session of the Galactic Council was called. Representatives from 12 species gathered to discuss the human problem. Velnara was summoned to testify about what she had witnessed. The council chamber was circular, with seats rising in tiers around a central speaking platform. Velnara had been here before, during peaceful trade negotiations and cultural exchanges. But today felt different. The air was thick with fear and uncertainty. She took her place at the witness platform. Around her, the representatives whispered to each other. She heard fragments of conversation. They destroyed an entire criminal organization in less than a week. The efficiency was inhuman. We always knew they were violent, but this... The council leader, a fellhorn named Rixator, called for silence. His species was known for physical strength and direct communication. Witness Velnara, you were present during the human military operation at Dehan's Hope. Tell us what you observed. Velnara spoke carefully, describing what she had seen. The precision of the assault, the calculated violence, the complete absence of hesitation. She tried to remain objective, to present facts without interpretation. But the council members were not satisfied with facts. Did the humans show any mercy? Asked a representative from the Porin cluster. They took prisoners who surrendered immediately, Velnara said. Anyone who continued to resist was killed. How many prisoners? 17. Out of more than 2,000 Vrax present. The council chamber erupted in noise. Angry voices overlapped each other. Velnara heard accusations, warmongering, excessive force, barbarism. The representatives were scared. She could see it in their body language, hear it in their voices. They had thought they understood humans. Now they knew they did not. Rixator called for silence again. The humans will speak. Bring them in. The chamber doors opened. Taemin entered, followed by Jiwoo. They walked calmly to the speaking platform. Velnara studied their faces. Taemin looked exactly as he had during their trade negotiations. Calm, composed, professional. Jiwoo's expression was harder to read. The warmth Velnara remembered was gone, replaced by something colder. Ambassador Taemin, Rixator said. The Council has concerns about humanity's recent military actions. We request an explanation. Of course, Taemin said politely. What would you like to know? Why did you not attempt negotiation with the Vrax? Why did you resort immediately to violence? Taemin tilted his head slightly. We gave them 30 minutes to surrender. They chose to execute a hostage instead. At that point, negotiation became impossible. A representative from the Quiloth delegation spoke up. It was Kelvon, the same trade minister who had insulted human ships. You could have paid their ransom. You could have given them what they demanded. Instead, you chose to kill them all. Yes, Taemin said simply. We did. Why? Kelvon demanded. Why choose violence over peace? Something changed in Taemin's expression. Not much, just a slight hardening around his eyes. Because paying ransom would have taught the galaxy that taking human hostages was profitable. Because surrendering to their demands would have marked us as easy targets. Because allowing them to kill our people without consequences would have invited every criminal organization to try the same thing. So you committed mass killing for strategic reasons? Kelvon's voice dripped with disgust. No, Taemin said quietly. We committed mass killing because they murdered our people and we decided to stop them permanently. The chamber exploded into chaos. Representatives shouted accusations. Some demanded restrictions on human military capabilities. Others called for sanctions. A few of the more paranoid species suggested quarantine, keeping humanity isolated from the rest of the galaxy. Velnara watched it all and felt a strange sadness. The galaxy was reacting exactly as she would have expected. They saw the violence. They saw the death. They saw humanity's capacity for destruction, but they did not see what she had seen in one chick's eyes. The grief, the cost. Rick Sater was shouting for order when another human stepped onto the platform. Velnara had not seen him before. He was older, with gray hair and a weathered face. He carried himself like someone who had spent a long time thinking about difficult questions. "I am Changmin," he said. His voice was not loud, but somehow it cut through the noise. The chamber quieted. "I am a human historian. May I speak?" Rick Sater looked uncertain but nodded. Changmin looked around at the assembled representatives. "You are afraid of us. That is reasonable. What you saw at Dayan's Hope was frightening, but you are afraid for the wrong reasons." He began to speak about human history, about wars that lasted for generations, about weapons developed not in decades but in months, about conflicts that nearly destroyed the entire species, about empires that rose through conquest and fell through violence. "For most of our history," Changmin said, "we were very good at killing each other. The technology changed over time, but the basic pattern remained the same. We fought, we died, we rebuilt. We fought again." He paused, and then something changed. "We started asking why. Why were we fighting? What were we trying to achieve? Was there another way? It took us thousands of years to learn these lessons. We did not learn them through philosophy or meditation. We learned them by making every possible mistake, by experiencing every kind of horror that war can create, by counting our dead until the numbers lost all meaning." Changmin's voice grew softer. "You think what you saw was our rage? You're wrong. What you saw was our rage under control. You saw us using it as a tool instead of being consumed by it. That is the difference. That is what took us thousands of years to learn." A Quiloth representative stood. "You speak of control, but we saw massacre. We saw efficiency in killing. That is not control. That is something worse." "Is it?" Changmin asked. "Would it have been better if we fought sloppily? If we let our anger make us careless? If we killed hostages along with the Vraks? You want us to be bad at violence. You think that would make us safer? But the opposite is true." He looked at Velnara. "The witness knows. She saw our soldiers. Tell them. Were they out of control?" Velnara stood slowly. All eyes turned to her. "No," she said quietly. "They were perfectly controlled. That was what made it so terrifying." Changmin nodded. "Exactly. We do not fight because we are angry. We fight angry because that is how we survive. The anger sharpens us, focuses us, makes us capable of doing what must be done. But we control it. We channel it. We put it away when it is no longer needed." He turned to address the full council. "For 30 years we have been peaceful. We have negotiated instead of threatening. We have accepted insults instead of responding with violence. We have been patient and diplomatic and accommodating. And you thought that was our natural state. You thought we were soft." Jiwoo stepped forward. When she spoke, her voice had none of the warmth Velnara remembered. "You were wrong. We are not naturally peaceful. We are naturally violent. Everything about our evolution shaped us for survival through aggression. But we learned to control that nature, to save it for when it was truly needed. We learned that lesson through pain and death and centuries of mistakes." She looked around the chamber. "For 30 years you have been protected from what we are. We protected you from it ourselves. We smiled and apologized and backed down from conflicts because we did not want to be what our ancestors were. We wanted to be better. And then the Vraks took our people," Taemin said, his voice flat. "They killed a teacher who never hurt anyone. They threatened to kill 40,000 more. At that moment we had a choice. Continue pretending to be soft or remember what we really are." The chamber was silent now. Taemin continued. "Here is what we are going to do. We are going to continue being peaceful. We are going to continue being diplomatic. We will negotiate. We will compromise. We will be patient. And if anyone harms our people, our worlds, or our allies, we will respond exactly as we did to the Vraks." He let that sink in. "This is not a threat. This is a promise. We do not want to be what we used to be, but we will become it again if you force us to." 6 months passed. The galaxy was different now. The word human carried new weight, new meaning. Where before it had meant friendly or naive, now it meant something else. Something that made other species careful about how they spoke, how they acted, what they threatened. No one attacked human interests anymore. No pirate raids on human shipping. No casual insults from other species' diplomats. No demands that assumed human weakness. The galaxy had learned. Velnara wondered if they had learned the right lesson. She requested leave from her duties and traveled back to Dihan's Hope. She told her superiors she wanted to study post-conflict human behavior. The truth was simpler. She needed to understand. The humans had shown her something that contradicted everything she thought she knew, and she could not let it go. The colony was being rebuilt. Everywhere she looked, construction equipment moved earth and materials. New buildings rose from the foundations of ones that had been damaged. Humans worked alongside members of other species, all volunteers who had come to help. Velnara found Bora at a medical facility. She was one of the hostages who had survived. Now she worked caring for others who had been traumatized by the experience. "You are Velnara," Bora said when they met. "The Quailoth observer. I heard you were there on the ship." "Yes," Velnara said. "I watched the rescue operation. I wanted to speak with someone who experienced it from the colony." Bora gestured to a quiet room. They sat together. Bora looked tired but steady. Her hands were marked with scars that Velnara recognized as old burns. "The Vraks were not kind," Bora said quietly. "They hurt people to make a point, to show they were serious. Some of us tried to resist. That made it worse. But you survived?" "Yes, because of a soldier named Minho. I never met him before the rescue. I do not know anything about him except his name. When the fighting started, he found the room where they were keeping us. A Vrax was about to execute me and 2 others. Minho got in the way." Bora's voice stayed steady, but Velnara could hear the emotion underneath. "The blast hit him instead of us. He died so we could live. A stranger who chose to protect people he had never met." Velnara thought about the combat recordings she had watched. The precision, the efficiency, the cold calculation of every movement. The soldiers seemed very focused during the operation. Very controlled. They were, Bora agreed. But that does not mean they did not care. Minho did not have to shield us. He could have taken cover and still completed his mission. But he chose differently. "You still think about him." "Every day," Bora said. "Every single day I think about the fact that someone I never met considered my life worth more than his own. And I think about all the soldiers who did the same thing, who risked everything to save us." She looked at Velnara directly. "Your people think we are violent. You are right. But you do not understand what that violence means. We do not kill because we enjoy it. We kill to protect, to defend, to stop things that should not exist, and then we carry that weight forever." "How do you live with what you can do?" Velnara asked. It was the question that had haunted her for 6 months. Bora was quiet for a moment. "We do not live with it easily. Every human soldier who killed to save us will remember it forever. They will see those faces in their sleep. They will question if they did the right thing. They will carry guilt even though they should not. We do not celebrate violence. We mourn the necessity of it. That is the burden we carry, knowing we can do terrible things and choosing every day not to unless we have no other choice." After speaking with Bora, Velnara walked through the colony. She wanted to see what humanity was building here, what they considered worth protecting. She found a small park being constructed. Human children played nearby, supervised by adults from 3 different species. One of the children was young Su, a 6-year-old who had been held hostage. He was drawing pictures with colored markers, creating images on large sheets of paper. Velnara approached carefully. "May I see your drawing?" Young Su held it up proudly. It showed human soldiers and alien civilians standing together. Above them he had drawn stars and ships. At the bottom, in careful letters, he had written, "Friends who protect us." "Did the soldiers scare you?" Velnara asked gently. Young Su thought about this seriously. "A little bit. They were very loud and moved very fast, but they told us not to be afraid. They said they would keep us safe." "And they did." Other children had gathered around. Velnara noticed several were not human. Refugee families from other species who humanity had taken in after their own worlds had been destroyed by various conflicts. A small Quailoth child, probably only 4 years old, tugged on Velnara's clothing. "Are you from the same place as me?" "Yes," Velnara said, feeling something tighten in her chest. "I am Quailoth." "The humans are nice," the child said seriously. "They gave us a house and food, and they do not make us leave even though we are different." Velnara looked at the children playing together. Human, Quailoth, Fellhorn, Porin, and several other species all mixed together without apparent concern for their differences. They were just children playing. Are you afraid of humans now? Velnara asked the alien children. They looked at each other, confused by the question. Finally, a Fellhorn child answered, No, they protect us. Why would we be afraid? Velnara had no answer for that. She watched the children play until she noticed Jiwoo approaching. The human xenobiologist looked different than she had at the council, less cold, more like the person Velnara had first met. You came back, Jiwoo said. I am glad. They walked together through the park. Construction equipment worked in the distance, the sounds of rebuilding forming a constant background noise. I need to apologize, Velnara said finally. For what? For not understanding. For 10 years I studied your species and learned nothing important. I saw your smiles and your patience and I thought I understood. I thought you were weak, soft, less evolved than species who had learned emotional control. Jiwoo listened without interrupting. But I was wrong, Velnara continued. You are not weak because you smile. You smile because you are strong enough to choose kindness over violence. You are not soft because you are patient. You are patient because you understand the cost of impatience. You are not less evolved. You are differently evolved. You learn to transform your violence into a tool instead of eliminating it entirely. It took us a long time to learn that, Jiwoo said quietly, and we are still learning. We still make mistakes. We still struggle with what we are capable of. But you keep trying. You keep choosing peace even though you could choose war. Why? Jiwoo smiled. This time it was genuine, reaching her eyes. Because we remember. Our history is written in blood. Every major city on Earth has memorials to wars, to battles, to people who died in conflicts that should never have happened. We know what violence costs because we have paid that price over and over. She looked at the children playing. We do not want our children to pay it again. We do not want the galaxy to pay it. So we choose peace. We choose diplomacy. We choose patience. Not because we cannot fight, because we have fought enough. But you will fight again if necessary. Every single time, Jiwoo said, her voice suddenly hard. Without question. Without hesitation. Because that is what happens when someone threatens the people we protect. We stop pretending we are civilized and remember we are survivors. She turned to look at Velnara. You asked how we live with what we can do. Here is the answer. We live with it by making it mean something. Minho died protecting strangers. That was his choice. He turned his capacity for violence into protection for the innocent. That is how we live with it, by making sure our violence only serves defense, only stops threats, only protects those who cannot protect themselves. That seems like a very heavy burden. It is, Jiwoo agreed. But it is our burden. We chose it, and we will carry it for as long as necessary. Velnara was silent for a long moment, watching the children play. Youngsu was teaching the small Quailoth child how to draw human soldiers. The Quailoth child was giggling, creating a picture that looked more like colorful shapes than actual people. I will return to my people, Velnara said finally. I will tell them what I have learned. What have you learned? Velnara thought carefully about her answer. That humans are kind not because they cannot be cruel, but because they choose every day not to be. That your rage is not your weakness. It is your strength because you have learned to control it, channel it, and set it aside when it is not needed. That you are peaceful not despite your capacity for violence, but because of it. You understand the cost of war because you have paid it, and that makes you more dangerous than any species that has never learned restraint. Jiwoo smiled. That is the most accurate assessment of humanity I have ever heard from a non-human. It is also terrifying. Yes, Jiwoo said softly. It should be. Because the truth is terrifying. We are capable of terrible things. But we are also capable of choosing not to do them. That is the balance we walk every day. That is what makes us human. Velnara made her final log entry that night. She marked it with the highest classification, knowing it would be studied by Quailoth leaders for generations. The entry read, I came to study humanity's weakness. Instead, I witnessed their greatest strength. Not their capacity for violence,